Over the Christmas holiday, Jules reflects on the year. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today to give you all my thoughts and my review of the Euphoria Special Part 2 episode titled Jules, and also subtitled Forget Anyone Who's Not a Sea Blob. Really excited to break down this episode with you all. This will be a spoiler review. Now, this episode did premiere early on HBO Max on Friday, which that's when I watched it, and then it will be premiering to everyone that has HBO this Sunday at 9 p.m. Central Time. So again, this is a full spoiler breakdown, so if you haven't seen the episode quite yet, check it out, come back and join the conversation. But I am so excited to break down this episode because if you all don't know, I am a huge Euphoria fan. I've reviewed the first season on this channel. I reviewed the special first episode, part 1 of Rue, and here we are discussing part 2, and I'm so excited to do so. But before we dive into it, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you all are following me on all my other social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which you can find all those links in the description below. If you are new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new content. It would mean a lot to me if you all can like and share this review. It not only helps out the channel, but I also appreciate all the support. And in the comment section below, once you've seen this second special episode focusing mostly on Jules, I want to know you all's thoughts of Jules' story, her therapy sessions, the meaning of what this can mean for season 2 of Euphoria. And also, let's just talk about Jules and Rue and how this episode ends. Will they come back together, or will they know that this is not the right time for them to be together right now? So let me just know your thoughts, your pros and cons. Let's have a great discussion about it all in the comments below. So again, back in December, I reviewed this the first episode that we get with Rue, and I was just completely blown away by the conversation between Rue and Ali and the diner and the setting, and the conversation was fantastic. The acting was just next level, and I was so excited to hear that we were going to get a part 2 focusing on Jules, because those were my favorite characters of season 1 of Euphoria. Seeing them together, even though it was just, and we'll talk about in this breakdown, they're right for each other, but they're just not right for each other at this point in their lives, because we know what's going on with Rue and her relapsing and her drug addiction, and we know what's going on with Jules. She's transitioning and just kind of figuring things out, and everything that went down with Nate. So it's just a good situation put at a bad time. But nonetheless, this episode, just my initial thoughts, just as amazed and just as immersed as I was in that first episode with Rue, this episode blew me away, even, if I may say, even more. I was more impressed, if I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was obviously, there was more settings involved with Jules' episode. There was so much backstory in regards to just, and we'll talk about it here in a second, just kind of more context to Jules in the night of the Halloween party, more context to her relationship with her father and her mom, and obviously more context with her relationship with Rue and why she left. I just thought this episode was fantastic. Knowing that Hunter, who plays Jules, was a co-writer of this script, made it feel so much authentic. And I know, and that's not saying that Sam doesn't have authenticity in the script, because he is fantastic. I am just been on a roll with Sam Levinson lately. Just saw Malcolm and Marie, which that review is on my channel now. He's an incredible director. His direction in this episode was fantastic, but the writing was just as great. But then having Hunter, having her kind of point of view in this script, and her talking about femininity and all the stuff that she was able to add to the script, just made it just like perfect television for me, and just so emotional. And I was just, again, I was blown away by this episode. But let's get into this kind of recap. Let's break it all down again. This is full spoilers. So starting off this episode, we see that Jules is in a therapy session. This is her first therapy session based on her leaving and going out of town, running away, and her father wanted her to go there, and just kind of catching up to Jules and kind of getting an insight of where she's from. And again, just looking at the perspective of Jules, I love that we get this from Jules, because for me, again, I mentioned it, Rue and Jules and Fesgo, those are my favorite characters, and Maddie as well. And I love all the characters, but those 3 characters to me just really, again, Nate's story, Jules' story, Rue's story, those stories to me are just so complex and just so well detailed, and just so much going on with those characters. But just seeing her perspective in this episode, and just really kind of looking at the relationship of how Rue is in recovery, trying to discover who she is as a person, and we get that with her episode, and we get that through the first season. But then looking at Jules and her perspective, they're both going through something. They're both discovering who they are as people on this earth, and what that can mean, and what's the meaning of certain things. But then when they meet each other, it almost kind of puts a break in that self-discovery, and they're kind of absorbed in each other. So they're kind of losing focus. I'm like, okay, who am I as a person? But no, I got to spend more time with this person I'm in love with, whether that be Rue and Jules, and just how they are so consumed with each other. But then they kind of breaks apart from them discovering who they are. So I just love that complexity within their relationship. But going back into this recap here, when Jules is talking to the therapist, the conversation, just like Rue's special episode, her speaking on the matter of her transitioning to becoming a woman and what she thinks it means to be a woman and why she wanted to be a woman is because she had this idea of what men want from women. And that puts so much context into Jules's first season when we meet her and see her online fantasies. We see her, the relationship she's put herself on with these men that are just very abusive and have these fetishes and things of that nature. So it just brings so much more layers and just more complexity and more kind of understanding and context to Jules in regards to her idea of what a woman is and what women think and how they, diagnose one another, how they look each other down with their clothes or nails, and just all the details that Jules goes into was just so well spoken, so well written, and just, again, you see that pain that's inside of her, and again, the self-discovery and the coming of age aspect of Jules. And I just love that, just kicking off point from the character and getting that side of her, because we have those conversations in the first episode, but I think that this one just shined a light on hearing her say that to someone else that has no context of the first season with this therapist, who I wonder if she's going to play a part in season 2. But I just love just that opening gate of just like what I thought it meant to be a woman and how it's completely different from what she initially thought it was. So I thought that just out of the gate, I was already hooked into this story. But going back into this conversation about what she thought it meant to be a woman, think about season 1. I believe it was episode 4, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was titled Shook Ones Part 2, which a lot of us remember that episode being the carnival episode, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite episode of season 1. And, we all know the Maddie, you think I'm dressed like a hooker? Like, we all remember that moment. But let's kind of rewind and think about the first 10 minutes of that first episode, right? That's when we get the backstory of young Jules and we see her relationship with her mother. We don't really talk about the addiction aspect like we get in this episode, but we see how her mother put her in a psychiatric ward because she was transitioning to become a girl at that time when I believe she was 11 years old, and leaving her there and just the trauma that came with that. And when she came out, she became closer to her father and her mom went away, which again, we get more context of that in this episode. But again, it just this episode was just so perfect because again, it not only adds more layers to the first season, it adds more layers to Jules' character, but it even sets the stage for things that we can maybe expect to see in a season 2. Will we see her relationship with her mother come back together? Will we get the side of her mother's perspective in regards to why she put her daughter in psychiatric ward, why she became an addict and left her family? That will be something really interesting to explore. But again, I just thought that it just really added more layers to my favorite episode of season 1, which was the Shook Ones Part 2. But going back into it, we have other conversations being had regarding why she ran away. She had, and I mentioned this in my review of Rue's special, she has a lot of pressure of Rue's sobriety in regards to if she kind of diverts left and Rue wants to go right, then that can maybe have Rue go back into her addiction, which we know based on part 1, she does go back in her addiction, or at least she's thinking about going back on it. But, it's a lot of pressure for Jules, right? And again, going back to what I said up top, she has her own journey. She has her own journey of self-discovery and figuring out who she is as a woman, and then having this responsibility of having Rue. I don't want her to relapse. I have to be there. I have to always check on her. It's just like there's so much pressure going on, and that was one of the big reasons why she kind of had like I don't want to say a breakdown, but she just wanted to get away. That's why she went on that train. She wanted to escape Nate, Rue, all the drama going on with the blackmailing that Nate put her through, and again, the pressure that she has for Rue. So it makes so much sense why she ran away. At that point, we're just like, oh, Jules, why would you leave Rue? That feels so bad, and that moment's so emotional, but it adds layers to it. Again, the understanding of why she did that, which just, again, she feels like the relationship that she has with Rue is imbalanced. And it makes sense. And we saw, and it's so great, we see that perspective with Rue and how she feels about the relationship. And now we get to see that from Jules' perspective. But also in the similarities in the relationship that she has with Rue, it reminds her a lot of her mother. Now, again, we briefly got a hint of that in season 1 when she mentioned that her mom left. But I don't think that she mentioned that her mom was an addict. It might have been like briefly mentioned in that kind of recap of her backstory. But we see that in action in this episode. And within those moments, you see her mother trying to get back in her life, and particularly the week before the Halloween party, which again adds so much layers to the first season. We understand why Jules was so kind of like she was in party mode. She just wanted to forget things. Of course, we all assumed, and it played a big part of it, that she wanted to escape from Nate. She wanted to get drunk, just have a good time, and forget the drama going on. But at the same time, earlier that week, she had saw her mother again, when she didn't want to see her mom, and it makes so much sense why she doesn't want to see her mom. I completely understand where she's coming from, and her dad just trying to say, hey, give her another chance, try to, understand where she's coming from. At the same time, she's thinking of that same relationship that she's having with her mother is kind of the same thing she has going with Rue, in regards to it just takes one mistake and she can slip back into rehab and just slip back into addiction. So it's just so much layers. And again, it just makes me love Jules' character even more, just understanding where she's coming from and her perspective of the situation. So going back to other conversations that they have with this therapist, she talks about her online relationships and these fantasies online, and how she makes up relationships in her head, and in particularly how she thought Tyler was the love of her life and never met him, and making these fantasies of what he looked like. And at first I'm like, wait, that's not Jacob or Elordi. That's not the character. That's not Nate. But then again, that was her fantasy of what she imagined what Tyler looked like. But we all know that Tyler was fake and it was actually Nate. But going into that was incredible, and we'll talk about the cinematography with that. But again, just going into this idea how Jules falls in love so easily, how she wants to be accepted, how she creates things in her head, was just such a deep understanding of where this character's mindset it is. And again, we see the perspective of Jules and how she saw the relationship unfold with Rue, and how we thought Rue was just like, she was so upset when she first kissed Jules, and she was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to mess up relationship. But Jules had the same feelings for her, if not even more feelings, we get for the first time. This was her first time kissing a girl. That was the first time she was so close to a woman. So I love those little details to the character. And again, the switching the tables, the other side of the coin, hearing Jules' perspective of all that situation and what we saw in that first season was just so great. And then we go into them just being so in love with each other, how Jules feels like Rue can't love her as much as she loves her. And the same thing is the same kind of mindset that Rue's in, that she thinks that she loves Jules more than her. And again, they're so right for each other, but again, it's just not the right time for them to be together. But just speaking into the creative aspect of Hunter and Sam, and the cinematography and the script and the beach moments and the haunting, scary, creepy, thriller vibes of the moments when we're in that fantasy world in New York, in that apartment, when Rue is having intercourse with Nate, Tyler, and just the moments in the cinematography of how Rue was in the room and how she thought she was ODing in the bathroom, and when she was having sex with Tyler, Nate, they were just that whole kind of, it was very haunting. It was very well captured. It was just like in the mindset. It was like a nightmare scene. It was just so well executed. It was like incredibly, the creative behind this team with Hunter, with Sam, his cinematography, again, they're just clicking on all cylinders. And I just love that moment in that scene. It was just like beautiful artwork in my opinion. But then just breaking it down, talking of Hunter's performance as Jules, these characters, they know who these characters are, and you can tell that they know who these characters are in and out, because even with, Hunter's character, who she plays as Jules, there's a lot that she can probably relate to in this story regarding the transitioning of a woman, regarding relationships with men and women, and just things that she can probably connect. And again, I'm just assuming this, but I assume that there's a lot of things that she can probably resonate with, and kind of similar situation with her personal life. And I think that again, her being the co-writer of this episode, and I would love to see her maybe have more writing opportunities within season 2. It just feels so authentic, and it felt so true and honest to the character, to the LGBTQ community that probably goes with the exact same thing that Jules go through. And that's why I just love this show. It touches on so many demographics, and it touches on, again, we're looking at it from a perspective of a 17-year-old girl, whether it be Rue or Jules or Nate and Maddie, all those characters. But at the same time, it's something we can all relate to, no matter how old we are, in regards to finding out who we are as people, finding out what makes us break, finding out, talking about relationships and dependency of relationships, and just past trauma, how that can help us, or I should say kind of stunt our growth as people and human beings and as adults. So it's just so much I can relate to in this show, and it's just so well done, and the creators behind the show is just, they know what they're doing, and I just appreciate the show. I know the show isn't for everyone, and some people might not like this episode. It is what it is, but I love this episode. I love the both special episodes. I love that we got these episodes in the mix of maybe not getting season 2 to the end of 2021. I believe I read an article the other day that they plan on shooting season 2 in March, and the plan is to have it out by the end of this year, which would be fantastic. But I don't want them to rush it. If it has to come out in 2022, I'll bite the bullet and wait for this beautiful art to come out. But just talking about the important moments of Jules, talking about womanhood and what she thought it meant, and how she looked at it as, you know, what a man would want from a woman and not just from her perspective, what she thinks a woman is. The moments of her mom, the moments of why she left, the relationship with Jules, the relationship, or I should say with Rue, the relationship that she had online with Tyler, aka Nate, and how that broke her, and how she still almost wants, she wishes that Tyler was a real person, but she knows that was all a fantasy. And as we wrap up the episode, her dad finally brings her home, and again, the moment of Jules seeing Rue on the floor ODing was just, might be some foreshadowing. I hope not, but there's a lot to be said there. But it ends with Jules and Rue reuniting for the first time on Christmas Eve. Or not Christmas Eve, I think it's a week or two after, or I should say like a week after Christmas, in this New Year's. They see each other. Jules apologized to her for leaving. They both have a moment of, you know, crying and saying Merry Christmas and apologizing. And we see Jules just say Merry Christmas, or say Rue says Merry Christmas, leaves the room. We see Jules just left there crying as the camera pans out. It's raining outside, which symbolizes the tears that she has inside. It was a beautiful way to cap up the episode. It sets up season 2 beautifully. It was incredibly powerful. It was emotional. It was a creative episode. Hunter co-wrote the hell out of this with Sam, and, you know, featuring Rue, and we saw Nate, and we saw her mom and her dad, and I'm just really, really impressed by this episode, as I was with Rue's episode, and I dare may say it, that I don't know which one is better. I don't think it's a matter of which one's better. I just think they're both fantastic pieces of art, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us for season 2. So I thought this was a fantastic episode for Jules. So much context, great performances, great cinematography. It was just great all around. I don't have really any criticisms to really say about this episode. I thought it was damn near perfect, just like I thought that Rue's episode was perfect. So those are just my thoughts of Jules Part 2 special episode that we got here, and I'm so excited for season 2. But let me know what you all thought of Jules' episode, the meaning of, the connective piece that you have with the character, the stories that you might want to share about the character that you can relate to Jules, and just in life in general. If you have any criticisms about the episode, let me know that as well. And any predictions you may have in regards to what this episode means to a season 2, let's discuss it all in the comments. I love this show. I love talking Euphoria, so I would love to talk to you all about this show that I think is just fantastic, and these characters are awesome. So there you have it. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like this video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comment section, subscribe to the Movie Files if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Like I said earlier, I do have my review for Malcolm and Marie on the channel right now, so check it out. It's a fantastic movie in my opinion. But again, thank you all for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next video.